be able to look at, get a great look at the F4U Corsair. Looks like we're going to bring in another Allegiant airliner, and I can see it looks like it's on about a 2 or 3 mile final. And another one right behind him, so let's see if we're gonna hold off. Hey, by the way, there was one, I failed to mention one particular group during the presentation of the colors earlier today at our... Here it comes.
That is awesome.
The F4U Corsair in the carrier configuration pack. Look up. By the way, he also had the canopy pulled back. That airplane was built before the days of ejection seats, and if they got into trouble, they wanted to have the canopy open so they could get out of the airplane as quickly as possible in case something went wrong. We have grown tremendously. Here you go, Rob Ryder. The plate's coming in from the left. What a great photo up that is, huh? Lots of photo up here today, without a doubt. And I wonder what these people on the Allegiant Airlines are thinking when they come in and see this. Ladies and gentlemen, please watch from the right as we have our class of 1945.
Have been lost. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph.
And here, fought the Japanese in what they called the Pacific Theater of Operations. They were being pounded at every turn. Morale in the country was horribly low. The American people needed a boost, and our fighting men needed a shot in the arm as well. The president called for a secret plan to bomb Japan and put his military leaders to work. Just a few weeks later, 2 U.S. Army Air Force officers, a general, and a lieutenant colonel sat at a table in a Washington hotel. The lieutenant colonel sketched on the tablecloth an idea that was, at first glance, so outlandish that the general laughed at it. But then, knowing what was at stake, began to take notice. Finally, he said he'd support the colonel and get things lined up. The mission was to bomb Japan. That island country hadn't been attacked on its own soil in over 2,000 years, and the Japanese felt that their homeland was invincible. How to accomplish this mission was to involve types of military hardware never intended to work together. Land-based bombers put on the to make a combined attack on several Japanese cities. The type of airplane was new to the Army Air Force, but it was deemed to be the right choice, the North American B25 Mitchell bomber. The lieutenant colonel who hatched this plan was Jimmy Doolittle. He had been a flight instructor in World War I, and in the following years had become one of the most famous aviators in the world, setting records and becoming a household name. Doolittle was chosen to lead this assignment. The 17th Bomb Unit of the Army Air Force was the first unit to receive the B-25s, and the crews loved them. Doolittle called all the men together and told them he needed volunteers for a dangerous mission, but he couldn't tell them the target. And he said there was a very good chance they wouldn't make it out alive. In spite of what they didn't know, every man in the group still volunteered. The B-25B weighed in at about 28,000 pounds. That's 14 tons of airplane, fuel, bombs, bullets, and crew. The takeoff distance for a loaded Mitchell was approximately a quarter mile. To launch these heavy airplanes from the deck of an aircraft carrier with no catapult was a task that would require the first airplanes to take off at only 467 feet. Testing at Eglin Field in Florida required crews to make the takeoff at only 700 feet. After training had been completed, the bombers were flown to California, and on April 1st, 1942, 4 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, 16 B-25s were loaded aboard the aircraft carrier USS Hornet, and they headed within 400 miles of the coast. Launch, fly low and slow about 50 feet above the water to avoid detection by Japanese radar, then top up to 1,500 feet to release their bombs on military targets in the cities of Tokyo, Osaka, Kobe, Nagoya, and Yokohama. The crews would then head for safe bases in China, refuel, and then head home. But on Saturday morning, April 18th, when the Hornet was still about 800 miles away, they were spotted by a Japanese vessel. Doolittle, afraid that the boat may have radioed a warning to Japan about the Hornet and her carrier fleet of ships, quickly gathered the men together and said that they could call the mission off. All the crewmen said they wanted to continue, even knowing they probably wouldn't have enough gas to get to their bases in China. The crews scrambled aboard their planes. The Hornet turned into the wind, reached its maximum speed, and the first B-25 was launched. Jimmy Doolittle himself was at the controls and took off safely, as did all the other bombers. By 9:20 a.m., the 16 planes within about 5 hours, the planes reached the coastline and steered toward their assigned cities. Each of the Mitchell bombers carried 4 500-pound bombs, and all of them hit their targets. Amazing, the raid was a complete surprise. Little or no resistance was encountered, and after the bomb runs, they turned toward China, hoping they'd have enough fuel to land safely. The crews had several more hours of flight ahead of them, and the weather worsened. All 16 planes were lost after the raid, some running out of fuel with the crew bailing out into dead spawn, some ditching into the waters of China, one landing in Russia, 2 landing in Japanese-held territory. Several crew members lost their lives or were badly injured. Several more were taken prisoner until the end of the war, and 3 were executed by the Japanese. Expected to be court-martialed. Instead, he was promoted to brigadier general and presented with the Medal of Honor. How did the morale boost that the American people, more importantly, that our fighting men needed? Of the 80 men who participated in the raid, 4 are still alive today. And they, along with their comrades who have headed west, are true American heroes. We owe them our thanks and respect. To this day, the Doolittle raid remains the mission against which all other air missions have been measured. God bless you, sailors. God bless the men and women who have served and who are serving today to defend our freedom. And God bless the United States of America.
his own airplane, Panchito, the B25. Would you join me in a round of applause for Larry Kelly, the B25, the two little Raiders, and especially Richard Cole, who is here today at the air show, one of the 4 surviving two little Raiders.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to tell you when I started out the show, I told you about the importance of the air show announcer, Rob Ryder. I'd like you to know that Rob Ryder was the one who wrote that, who put the music to it, who produced it, and who narrated it. Let's have a nice round of applause for our very own Rob Ryder.
Thank you, Charlie Shue, very much.